Hiya guys, back to our YouTube channel. Thanks for your great support. William Ruto in United States of America, New York. William Ruto amekuwa shocked. Unajua guys, acha tuanzishe video vizuri tena zaidi, ndio utakuja kuelewa ni nini nakwambia. You see guys, hapa nchini Kenya, maybe Rais William Ruto ametangaza ya kwamba atakuwa anaingia Busia County ama Uasin Gishu County. Utakuja realizing that moments ambazo William Ruto atatua airport, na ile barabara ya kutokea airport kuelekea ile maskani ambayo William Ruto atakuwa anaingia, utakuja kurealize ya kwamba watakuja kufunga hiyo barabara. Hiyo barabara kuna mtu atapita. Unaona watu wangu, until the president aweze kupita, aweze kukamilisha shughuli zake, ndiposa watu waendelee na nini na shughuli za kupita pita kwa hiyo barabara. And don't forget, most of Kenyans ama most of residents wanatumia hiyo njia, na hatuna alternative or route ya kupita ili ufike place unaenda, uko na emergencies zaidi ama uko na biashara tofauti tofauti kwa ile barabara. Tutangojea tu Rais William Ruto apite. For example, angalia hapo.
Asiende mbele, weke gari hapa, watafungania. Weka hapo kwa kona. Pinya gari hapo mwisho. Haya. Hebu ni text. Pinya huko mwisho. Sawa eno. Pinya huko.
So lazima mtangojea rais apite ndiposa muendelee na shughuli zenu. Without that, utakuwa unataka kupigwa risasi hapa nchini Kenya. Hapo ni Kenya tunaongelelea. Now, President William Ruto ameingia United States of America. William Ruto amekuwa akiobserve venye shughuli zinaendelea pale. And William Ruto moments alitua pale, hakuna mtu alishtuka eti kuna rais ameingia hapa nchini. Watu waliendelea na shughuli zao. Na William Ruto alichukua jukumu na wale viongozi wa pale ya kutembea place tofauti. Na ukiangalia moments William Ruto alikuwa anatembea, watu walikuwa wanaendelea na shughuli zao. Unaona watu wangu, wanaendelea na shughuli zao, wamemchukua pia kama mtu tu wa kawaida, raia. Unaona watu wangu, raia tu, kama mtu wa kawaida venye anakuonyesha kwa pictures. Unaona guys, watu wanapita tu. Na yeye pia anapita tu. But the only thing wanafanya ni kusimamisha gari tu kidogo apite, then gari pia zinapita, watu wanapita. But kani watu wanapitana tu na yeye. Kumaanisha freedom iko pale zaidi kuliko hapa nchini Kenya. Kwa hii uongozi ya President William Samoei Arap Ruto. Unaona watu wangu? Now, kabla tuendelee, ensure ume like video na nasema thanks for your great support. Nyinyi ni watu wa nguvu zaidi. Kwa hivyo guys, nilikwambia siwezi nikakuletea story moja. Lazima nikuletee at least story kadhaa ili uweze kujionea ni nini najaribu kufanyika kabisa hapa nchini Kenya. Kila siku watu wanaingia kwa debates, watu wana discuss mambo tofauti tofauti. Now, tunaingia kwa story jinsi ambavyo William Ruto amecapture parliament. Unaona guys, amecapture parliament kabisa. And it is clear
clutching on straws about especially looking at things happening elsewhere. Senator says they have nothing really that they're talking about. They are yet to own their narrative. Do you agree with that assessment that 687 days, they're still very fluid and probably they're just clutching on straws?
Actually, sometimes I don't know whether it's a deliberate confusion in which, as a country, we have politicized everything. I think once a government has been elected, its main responsibility is to govern and not to do politics 24/7, to be hosting delegations at State House more than 2 years before the next general election. If this is happening just like that person from Vietnam saying, it is really where you take the criticism that a country that should be off the mic and switch on the lights is still insisting that you should be on the microphone. I have heard from those State House speeches situations whereby you are the incumbent, you are in office. Things that you can be able to do today, you are telling delegations, if you re-elect me, I am going to do this or the other. Failure cannot be more spectacular, if you ask me. And therefore, if you use the standard of politics 24/7 to be the standard against which you are going to judge the opposition, then you will be told, why are you not playing politics as effectively as William Ruto? And to me, if you asked me, it is really regrettable. You saw Kibaki, you elect him, he is off the political radar until the election season comes. That's the way in which it ought to be. Not any other way that every day you are politicking and not working. Hosting delegation is not work. Hosting delegations is actually the assumption that you need to be supported based on politics, not performance. And therefore, for me, even to consider that as a yardstick, it is wrong, because the nominations, for example, for any positions are going to take place in the months of April, May, and June 2027. So where should the pressure be coming for the opposition? That you should be organized, we should be having a candidate. That one is completely uncalled for. But there's a more interesting issue, if you let me. The whole idea of talking about the opposition in this country is mistaken. If you are to talk about the opposition based on the performance of the last election, then you'd be talking about Azimio. Azimio, it was actually the majority, but it didn't produce a president. Now this Azimio, under the constitution, it ought to hold certain positions in parliament and elsewhere, on the basis of which they can hold the president accountable. But what is it that has happened? Parliament, both the Senate and the National Assembly, have been completely captured. So that when you go to the National Assembly, and even at the executive level, you're having a scenario where people who ought to be governing, Gachagua and his group, were ejected from government. People who are supposed now to be for constitution and with a manifesto that is supposed to be answering Kenya Kwanza are now in government. That structural problem, dysfunction of government, has to be addressed in an honest manner. Otherwise, to continue running around issues would be mistaken. Two other little points.
Are we expecting too much from the team we're calling United Opposition to carry that mantle or that burden that Azimio should have been carrying?
Yes, it is not their burden because like a person like Rigathi Gachagua, let's say as an example, he belongs in the manifesto of Kenya Kwanza, but he was ejected, isn't it? The people who ought now to be saying this is the vision for Kenya that was actually voted for has joined government. And that is the confusion that I'm talking about, that nobody is talking about. Now, about the compensation, I'm so educated. In the compensation issue, and this thing, I'm a human rights lawyer, this is something very important to me. Apart from the fact that some people were killed, those people who are killed, sometimes you cry for them, but you bury them. But the pain never goes. But there's another worse kind of pain that we are having amongst families, those of us who have met them. A lot of young people were shot and maimed. Those young people, some of them had young families. There are some of those people are still going for medication. As we have this political body to talk about compensation, which is the law has already provided for, one would actually be able to wonder, what is the big deal about each of these families with injured people, giving them 2 million each, as we wait for this other body to do this or the other. I go back to George Floyd. You remember George Floyd of the US? When George Floyd was killed, Biden did not form a task force. Biden said the American government apologizes for this unlawful killing and ex gratia. The American government is going to compensate the family a certain amount of money that was mentioned. It was a substantial amount of money. So to me, the president, in the same way that you go to State House and decides every teacher is going to be given a 10 million, a 10,000 bribe, he can also compensate these people without much ado. Finally, on these issues of you are educated, you are this, you are that. Kibaki was not officially a doctor. He was not officially a professor. But anybody, I had a one chance or two to talk to him privately. Those people, even who speaks about him, Kisa Kitui, Anyang' Nyong'o, Kipruto Kirwa, they also say the same thing, that rarely could you come across a man who had the presence of mind and understanding of what people ought to do than Mwai Kibaki. Did he brag to anybody how educated he was? He did not. But finally, I finish by saying, some of us have gone to school substantial enough and we know a lot about the world. And one of the things we used to say, we were in the same generation with my colleague Honorable Mungatana, there are people we used to call real professors and real doctorates and fake ones. As a lawyer, you could be named. You heard about somebody called Professor Okoth Ogendo, Professor Gai. You heard about somebody called Karistos Juma, Professor Goge wa Thiong'o. There were these guys, Professor Anyang' Nyong'o, that you would be able to say that when you hear so and so is a professor, you need to hear him for 5 minutes to see what they have done, to indicate they are professors or have doctorates. But sometimes in Kenya, in fact, I wonder whether it should be a doctorate at all, because I see people with little in their minds saying they are doctors. People who have messed up countries saying that they are doctors, they are professors. So the one of the things is, I would actually be more interested to say, the guy calling himself a professor, is there any evidence to say he's really a professor? The Americans sometimes they keep saying, you read it in The Economist, that a lot of these people who call themselves engineers and doctors in other countries, in those countries they would only be technicians, diploma holders.
Listing of some of the issues that will form the basis of the campaigns towards this election. Justice, issues of compensation, issues of reparations for people who may have lost their lives or being injured in the kind of protests we've witnessed in the last 1 year or so. Because the issue has been that these people are just saying one term, but not the issues. But listening to them, they seem to be pointing at a few things.
Yeah, Fred, thank you so much for that very useful question. You know, Kenyans at times delude themselves in the feeling that we must give counter manifesto to the existing arrangement of Kenya Kwanza. Ours first is, of course, to hold them to account. This is what you promised the people of Kenya, and we are falling short because of 1, 2, 3. And as we age towards the next general election, we are going to have clear policy in every sector, whether it's health, whether it is agriculture, and all other subsectors that exist within the framework of national development. What is important is we're not just saying one term. We're just saying we could have done better without President Ruto. Why? Because of rampant corruption that every day you see, every day you read, including today from the Auditor General and Controller of Budget. These are things that happen every day. And also display of arrogance and almost taking it upon themselves that this country belongs exclusively to a certain elite group, not necessarily the rest of us. We are not saying that we want to partake in discussions with them. What we are saying is that do the right thing. When the elections come, we are all going to appeal to Kenyans, and Kenyans will make a decision on the basis of what is counter-proposal, or the scorecard for the current regime, and therefore what is better for this country. When it comes to issues of reparation, whether it's reparation, compensation, or whatever term one wants to call it, it is something that should not even have taken place in the first place. That's why the situation seems to be degenerating to a level that it may not be clear what is really next when it comes to the issue of compensation for those who lost their lives. And remember, Fred, you cannot take away my child and you assume that any amount of money is going to compensate me. The contact between the child and the parent is such an important event that no amount of money shall compensate the life of a child or the life of a loved one, because there are many people who are killed not necessarily because they were demonstrating. Remember that girl Wanjiru, I think in Kiambu, somewhere in Dumberi. She was in her parents' room. I think she was having lunch. Then a bullet just went all the way and killed her. And many others who actually got on crossfire. Remember Kariuki, the guy who was selling masks, that somebody at point blank shot him, he went down, taken to hospital, in ICU, then eventually he dies. And people want to play that as if compensating somebody. And whose money is it? Who is culpable? Who is to blame? Is it the policeman who shot these people? Or is it the government itself that gave instructions? So we should actually be weighing is it a crime of omission by the government to keep the security proper, or a crime of commission that they decided to kill people just to threaten them with the hope that the next election they are going to have a sort of walkover and have nobody raising a finger. This is something that is fundamental, and we must say no as a people of this country.
All right. Do you believe that, because they made mention of it there, listening to Bwana Kalonzo Musyoka, that they're seeing now, they're talking about Malawi, Liberia, Ghana, Botswana, that that wave, if they may call it that, is giving them some impetus of some sort?
No, there are many examples. There are many examples that really do take place. But here, I feel it is not even the question of one term. It's the weight of promises that President Ruto gave to Kenyans. You know, just one needs to just play those clips against what he has done for the last 3 years and what he's not likely to do for the next 2 years. This is something that I fundamentally believe will happen. And if anybody doubts that a sitting president can lose elections, they should pick examples. Apart from that, there is also the question of Zambia, the question of Angola, and the other, even internationally. Trump, Bush, the father of George Bush, the second Bush to become president, and many other places in the world.
Right.
So one term is not unique to Kenya. It is a phenomenon that can take place as long as somebody misadvises himself,
right,
thinking that he's the most educated president that Kenya ever had. Learned in what field? Is it in leadership? Or just another field that has nothing to do with leadership?
All right.
And you see, you can demonstrate your intellect your capacity, your experience by churning out good results. But just saying you went to school, many people have gone to school. So what?
All right. Senator, the competition now will